Okay. So as I was preparing for this text, this is the foundational text of our class in terms of gender, right? It's an extremely important text, which we will need more than today's class on, right? So I'm already warning you that we will be going over for sure into next class. So instead of Cain and Abel, we're going to continue this text and maybe into the next class. So I'm going to really take my time on this text because it's fundamental that we really master what's happening there, because it's the foundation for the next section of our class, which is the Hebrew goddesses, right? This is when we study these three women, these three powerful women. And Eve, in a way, is the proto-woman, right? She's the basis. If we can understand her story and what God, the gifts, right, that God gives her, we can understand much better what is going on with the three goddesses. How do we already have questions? Stage?
No, my question is more as to the class work. So next on Tuesday, do you still want us to review? Do you want us to review chapter 4 and go with chapter 4, or
So
continue
I'll
with
tell you.
chapter 3?
Yeah, I'll tell you at the end of class where
Okay.
we find ourselves. Depends how the conversation goes. Okay, but before we get into the you know, the actual the center of the text, which is the God's punishment, right? I want to go over some of your excellent questions as usual. Very good, nice work. A lot of you are doing really, really well on this. So and we'll begin to answer these questions, right? But I want to start a little bit. So here's an interesting question by Pierre-Antoine. Why does God speak only to Adam about the prohibition about the fruit, right? So Adam hears it, but never directly to Eve, right? So let's explore this a little bit, right? We remember that if I had been God personally, I would have waited until they're both there, separate, and then I tell them why is he speaking at the beginning to Adam? Although we know that he is kind of, Adam contains both in a way. So maybe I'm already answering the question that in a way he has spoken to both, since Adam is not yet split, right? They're both contained within Adam. I don't know. Let's hear, that's kind of where I'm thinking, but if there's any other stage, you want to try to respond to that?
Yeah, a real quick thing. We must think about this. This is pretty much a speculation. This, just the fact that it has not been put into text doesn't mean that God didn't really talk to Eve before. God might have talked to Eve before. I realize we're going through text itself, but I I think it would be a little unfair to just speculate and say that God did not talk to Eve beforehand, which is a possibility, because if before we were looking at Genesis 1:1, and it says God created the heavens and the earth. You can write billions of books based on just that statement. But now we're talking about whether God spoke to Eve or not. We don't know. This is a short
Yeah.
chapter, so it's a possibility.
Obviously, right? But what's interesting is that the author of our text doesn't mention it. So there's, you see, I'm never going by what actually happened. I'm going by the intention of the author as he is writing the text. What is he trying to say? I hope you're getting this distinction, right? Nobody knows what actually happened, right? All we know is what the author is writing and the way that he's writing, and therefore his intention. Now, why does the author not include, right? And this is Pierre-Antoine's question. Why does it seem like throughout the whole story, the only person who speaks to Eve is the snake, right? There is a kind of strange lack of communication, right? Between Eve and anybody. Adam, God, she's not speaking to him. Nobody's speaking to her. Well, Adam is speaking at her, right? When he sees her, he says, oh, this is bone of my bones, right? Flesh, but he's not speaking to her. Are you seeing the distinction between Adam speaking at her and speaking to her? Is everybody seeing what I'm saying? Put your hand in the screen. So Pierre-Antoine is underlining something very important, which I'll come back to, by the way, the fact that Eve seems to be kind of walled in. right? There is not really anyone speaking directly to her. God speaks to Adam, who eventually, keeps his name. So we have this, but we don't have either Adam or God in the story, right? All we have is the story. We don't know reality. In the story, Eve seems to be kind of walled in. Make sure you write this down because I will come back to this. This is an important point, right? Eve seems to be extremely isolated. The only moment she begins to have a conversation is, interestingly, with the snake, right? Which is why perhaps she found the snake so seductive. Williams, do you want to add to this? Go ahead.
Yeah, so can we really say that she was equal? Like, remember when we said God made both of them do both things, but now it seems like God just wanted her to do certain things and felt that Adam should know these things because he has more power over her because she came out of him. And it's like she's not equal as we thought we were from the beginning. So yeah.
Unless we see Adam as a hybrid being in the beginning, so
Yeah.
God might be addressing both. So in that sense, they would still be equal. But even when you go later, Adam speaks, God speaks, Eve never speaks, right? Until the snake. She's not having any communication with God or with Adam, right? So I wouldn't put it on the level of inequality. If we see Adam as being a hybrid being, right, that would solve the issue, Williams, perhaps. Okay, great. So jot this down. I'm gonna come back to this. This text, by the way, is so complex, right? This is an extremely, not only complex text, but deeply misunderstood text, right? So here I'm already preparing you for where I'm going. So jot down everything right now, even if it seems, unrelated. This is an important point, that Eve is very isolated in the story, right? Until the snake walks into her life. Okay, great. I love, kind of just on a note, interesting note, I love Wagler's philosophical reading of how eating of the tree could not have been wrong because there was not yet right and wrong before the tree. Wagler, that was cool. Where are you, Wagler? Where is Wagler? Wagler. Oh, there you are. Yes. So I enjoyed that, right? It's like, how can it be wrong if they don't yet have, right? Any choice. Right and wrong doesn't yet exist until you eat, right? So actually, just to go in your direction, right? Very interesting point by Alim, where she's saying something that eating of the tree was the loss of their innocence and entry into adulthood. I thought that was really interesting, right? In the sense that before they're naked, this is her commentary of the naked thing that I was going to ask you about, right? In fact, I should wait and ask you later. But yeah, let's see later about the naked thing. I'm going to come to it. Oh, actually, Wagler points it out, right? Why is this whole, right? They were naked and not ashamed, and after eating the fruit, they are ashamed of their nakedness. Let's go there. Alim has an interesting interpretation, but I want to hear some of you first. How would you interpret this whole issue of nakedness? What does it mean to be ashamed? What does it mean to be naked? What is going on here? Anybody have an interesting take on this? Olivera, go ahead.
I think it is it's consciousness that they gain, because before they don't know, like he says, like how do you know you are naked, God says, and then suddenly they are conscious of things. They are conscious that they have a body, that body doesn't have anything covering on. So I find this is a phenomenon of consciousness that they.
Okay, I like that, right? The awakening of self, right? The awakening of a self distinct from another. This is when you become ashamed. If you don't have a sense of the other, you go around naked. No, you don't, it doesn't matter, right? But here there's an awakening of me versus you, as though in a way, in a good and bad way, right? As though in a way the couple is split between me and you. Before they were kind of one blob, right? And here when they eat the tree, boom, you're this, I'm this. Now we are different, right? Consciousness, but also otherness arises, right? Make sure you write these things down, right? This is kind of, and Alim, add to this. You said something really interesting about the puberty, of mankind. It was interesting. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I was basically just like, I don't know, making like a reference, like an analogy of like mankind as like a human. So like this eating of the tree would be going through puberty, and like they're finally having their own like moral realizations, and I guess like sexuality develops during this time, so also connects to why they would be embarrassed of their nakedness. Yeah, and also I guess like when you are a teenager you start like rebelling against your parents, so like they're like rebelling against God. So
Okay, very good, right? We have here kind of a gateway into adulthood, right? As though the tree signifies leaving behind childhood, leaving behind the lack of shame, right? Leaving behind the lack of consciousness, like Olivera is saying, the lack of me versus the other, and entering, right? This stage of, you know, awareness, adulthood, modesty, right? A lot of philosophers, a lot of feminists, right? Philosophers have actually argued that the tree is a moment of individuation, is a moment of maturation, is a moment of growth. Without the tree, as Wagner says, right, there is no free will, there is no agency, there is no moral consciousness, right? On
Professor,
the
can
other
I add
hand,
something?
right, sorry?
Can I add something?
Yes, can you raise your hand, Rubinov?
I'm not sure how to raise my hand here.
Okay, I'll let you know. I'll remember you, but I'll let you know after class how to do that. Yeah, remember, please raise your
I
hand.
see
So
this.
that
Is that it?
No, that's clapping. You can go to participants. No, go to participants, and
Okay.
it depends.
Oh, I see it. This one, right? Raise hand.
Yes, that's it.
There it is.
Okay, I'll get to you in a second, Rubina. Hold on just
Okay.
good. So where was I? Yeah, on the other hand, right, we have the opposite view of the tree, right? That maybe this is the entry into dualistic thinking. If you're coming from a Eastern perspective, this is the entry into this kind of dualistic thinking, which is unproductive, which cuts us off from reality and from each other, right? When you're constantly judging, this is good, this is bad, you are good, you're bad, you're good. There's a separation that occurs between us and the world, between us and the human other. So in a way, right, the tree might also signify the beginning of separation, the beginning of separation from the world, separation from each other, right? Which is in the Eastern thought seen as being, you know, a regression. It's better to be one, right? To be one with the world instead of constantly me, you, right? In that sense. So very interesting ideas. Okay, let me hear a couple more of you on this tree business. So Rubinov and then Stajich, go ahead. Rubinov?
Yeah, so I was thinking yesterday when I was going over this, I was thinking a few theories. One of them was, you ever heard of the saying, like, this is hell on earth? So for me, what I was contemplating was the fact that God knew that this snake is rebellious against God. He put it anyway. So it's almost like an act of free will that he put that snake there. And it was almost an act of free will that the Adam and Eve tried to be greater than God. So they took that apple, and he in a way punished them for doing so. If they didn't eat that, he would have made life joyful. Whatever any problems they have, he would have solved it. Food, hunger, anything it would have been good. But because they went against them, he said that so the snakes will suffer, the descendants will suffer, the humans will suffer. Everyone, because of those small, tiny mistakes, it's not like an evolution of damage to everybody. So he threw everyone here on earth, and this is like a punishment. So whatever happens in this life happens. Like good people die every day, bad people die every day. It's like a random act of events because they didn't listen. This is a punishment. That's what I thought.
Rubinov, you're depressing us. However, having said that, I'm joking with you, Rubinov, right? This is one way to see it, right? Remember, there are many layers, right? We talked about this, right? When I introduced the class, there's the pshat, right? The literal, and Rubinov, I think you're saying very well the pshat, but then there are many other ways to read this, right? There's the drash, the remez, the sod, right? These are the 4 layers. So I agree with you on the surface. It looks like a terrible thing. On the other hand, right? There might be another way to look at this, right? And this is what we are exploring, right? There's certainly another way to look at this. Good. All right, let me not stay too long on the tree. I want to bring up a couple more things. Okay, one more thing. I think Stajich mentions a very interesting detail that he mentions, right? At the end of this terrible thing, right, where the so-called terrible thing, right? They eat the apple, they both, they're naked, and then God arrives on the scene. Now, how would you expect God to arrive on the scene after this catastrophe has happened? Like, how would you imagine in a cartoon, right? This is the end, right? They have disobeyed. The whole earth is going to now die, right? How would God arrive on the scene in a state of crisis? This is a state of emergency. How do you expect God to arrive? Pierre-Antoine.
Well, you mentioned a cartoon, so I'm gonna go that route. In a cartoon, I wouldn't imagine, like, it would be the opposite of what he did in the chapter. He would be angry. He would have, like, disregarded them and, like, stopped caring in that sense. Like, it would have been just chaotic. Like, he would have destroyed them probably, or just, like, cast them away for, like, ever and never thought about them again. That's what I think.
Very good, right? I think also King is saying thunder and light, right? We imagine a big bolt of lightning, right? Electrocuting them at the moment where they taste the fruit and they pulverize, right? Instead, there's a very interesting verb that is used in the Hebrew to describe God's action. The translation, as usual, sucks. Translation says he arrives walking. It's not bad, but it's not that. He is strolling. This is the attitude of someone who is kind of relaxed, just walking, taking his time, enjoying himself. It's a stroll. Now, this is very interesting, right? And if we believe that God knows everything, what is happening? Why does the author describe God as strolling in the state of emergency? Why is he not panicking, right? Anybody want to try and respond to that? Aline, go ahead.
So, taking this fact along with the fact that he put the tree in the middle of the garden and he also created the serpent. So, our group was talking about this. We feel as though this is a part of God's plan and he planned for this to happen.
Okay, right. It seems like God is not surprised, right? It's like, he's not, in a way, it doesn't, how shall I put it? He doesn't, not a hair moves, right? When this happens, God is still relaxed, still in control, right? There's a beautiful lesson, just to open a parenthesis, right? When we transgress, we start to panic sometimes. We're like, oh no, I ruined God's plan. I don't know if anybody has ever thought of that, right? You transgress and now you're like, I ruined God's plan. My whole life is over, right? Now it's gonna be horrible. I don't have God's blessing on my life anymore. It's over. Here we have a very different vision of God, right? They have just transgressed and God is like, chill, it's cool. He's not worried. He's not affected. It doesn't make him nervous, right? It doesn't make him he's not disappointed. He's not angry. He's relaxed. This is a very interesting vision of God as relaxed, chill God, right? Okay, this is just interesting detail, right? That I think Stage brought up. Ahmad, do you want to say something? Go ahead.
Yeah, I saw it as a very humorous and amusing scene in that God already knows that Adam tasted the fruit, and to me it's like he's just waiting for Adam to give himself up. When Adam says, I hid from you because I'm naked, it's like, yeah, you aren't supposed to know you're naked. He only knew he was naked after he ate the fruit.
Yeah, very good, right? There's a lot of irony here, right? God is like, hey, Adam, where are you? Right? Again, we have this God, right? Trying to start a conversation. It's not that he doesn't know where Adam is, right? He's trying to start a conversation. Tell me what happened. Where are you? Why are you hiding? What happened, right? So again, we have this notion of a God who is not coming from above, right? Not a vertical. Remember, the God in the book of Genesis I mentioned, right? Is not vertical, coming from above, right, imposing his will. You have a God very horizontal, trying to coax, awaken the human being to their own individuation, trying to draw them out of themselves, right? He's still creating, right? Right? The human is there, but the human is not yet fully expressive, right? And so God, in a way, trying to, like Socrates, right? You're all familiar of Socrates, his approach to philosophy. He would compare himself to a midwife, right? He would say, I don't teach, he said, Socrates, right? Said, I don't teach. I'm just here to help you give birth to your own ideas. God, in a way, has a Socratic role in these 3 chapters. He's asking the questions to help us realize who we are and to reveal us. And we are revealed, right? We start to see who Adam is in the way he answers, right? We get a picture of the woman in the way she answers, right? They are becoming individuated, right? So this is a very interesting detail also. Now, there's one more. Sorry, let me see if there's one more question before I get further. Granik, go ahead.
Yeah, it's not a question. It's just, it's interesting that Adam and Eve, I guess, are both like sort of expecting God to be angry and fiery, and like that's sort of what they're expecting, and that's why they hide. So I guess that was kind of included in what we were saying, but just wanted to make that clear.
Yes, very good, right? They're scared, and yet God is like, he's completely chill about the whole situation. I mean, if only we would just have that image, it would be enough, right? Of the God walking, strolling through our mess, through our transgressions, through our shame. God is just taking it easy. He's like, why are you worried? By the way, when we get to the book of Ecclesiastes, same notion of why are you scared? Why are you worried? Relax, right? We have the same invitation. We'll see in the book of Ecclesiastes, right? God seems to be saying, relax, right? Okay, now, I want to point out something very interesting in Adam's reaction. And actually, the whole time he's dealing with the situation. A lot of you have asked, I think there's, King mentions this, there's no dialogue, right? He's asking, right? Why is there no dialogue between Adam and Eve? We already pointed this out. These guys, they're not talking to each other. Did you notice? Adam and Eve are not talking to each other, right? At least not in the text, right? Another thing that Morales points out going further, and this is very, very poignant moment and very important moment, make sure you jot this down. Why is it that at no time Adam protected Eve, right? When she's talking to the snake, why didn't he step in? When God, right, and try to protect her, right, from the situation. Remember Adam's task, make sure you write this down, the task that was given to him before Eve arrives on the scene, right? He is supposed to protect the garden. There's 2 words, right? To cultivate and to protect the garden and everything in it. So one of the principal tasks of Adam is to protect. Why didn't he step in to protect Eve when she's talking to the snake? And later, when God comes on the scene, why doesn't he protect Eve and say, oh, it was all my fault. It was, don't kill her, kill me, right? That's the noble thing to do. No, instead, Adam is hiding behind Eve. Are you getting a sense of the personality of Adam? It's very important that you get a sense of the personality of Adam, right? There are 2 personality traits you need to remember to understand what is happening next in God's words. Eve, number 1, Eve, isolated, no dialogue, no communication. I might even add no love between her and her husband. He loves her, but we don't know what she feels, right? Now, Adam, cowardice, weakness, right? Not able to protect, lacking elements of backbone, right? Not able to stand up and, right, take the blame, shifting the blame, right? Being afraid, hiding. Are you getting the sense of these 2, right? Do you see now why God didn't say, and it was good when he created the human beings, right? They are created, but they are still evolving. I know we were taught they were created perfect, right? This is not what the text is saying. When the text omits good, right? It's saying that this is still happening. They're still in the process of being created. And we can see, right, that Adam and Eve have some major flaws, even though they're in the Garden of Eden, They're still unfinished. They're still they're still individuating, right? Are you following what I'm saying? Did you put your hand in the screen if you're there, right? Make sure you jot down these 2 personality traits, because this will help us understand what God says next and why he says it, right? Okay, let's get a couple questions. Kestenbaum, Rubinov, and Stajich.
Well, first of all, I want to, in honor of the class, I added a new painting on my wall of a naked Eve enticing Adam to eat from the apple. So
well done, Kestenbaum.
anyway, I was meaning to hang it up for a while, but this was a good motivation. But anyways, I'd say to add on is when God asks the very first question in the entire Bible, or perhaps even in the entire history of mankind, he says, "Where are you?" And Adam evades personal responsibility. He says, "Oh, well, I was afraid, so I hid." That doesn't answer the question. The question is, where are you? And so I think part of the character flaw within Adam's own personality is he doesn't even realize his own mistakes. So we see that, yes, most pronounced when he shifts the blame to Eve, but also in the fact that God was giving him an opportunity to say, "You're right, I messed up." And instead, he just simply evades the question and tries to move on to a different subject entirely.
Adam is deeply evasive, right? He's absent. He's the absent father. He's the absent husband, right? Here's Eve talking to the snake. Where is he? Right? Of course, she also has her issues, right? Why is she not turning? Why isn't she with him? Right? Why is she by herself? Right? Why isn't she at any point asking Adam, "What do you think?" Nothing. Right? So both, you can sense there is some deep character flaws that there's still some growth that is needed. But absolutely, Adam, you can really summarize his behavior as someone who is evading responsibility. We're jot this down because we'll come back to this. Rubinov, go ahead.
You can continue. I was gonna say something else, but it was already covered.
Oh, okay, great. Stajich and then Pierre-Antoine.
Well, actually, I believe whoever spoke before me did cover this particular subject.
Oh, very good. Pierre-Antoine.
Just a quick mention, since you're talking about personalities, this just popped in my head, but there's a few there's a show called Twilight Zone, and there's a few episodes, the original one at least, there's a few episodes talking about the creation of Adam and Eve, and I just realized that a lot of the depictions of Eve are female that's in the show, she is always quiet and she's always just there and exists, but not until the man appears it's she maybe starts talking, and I find that weird. I don't
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely a silence, right? She's surrounded by silence in the text until the episode of the snake. And then all of a sudden, somehow you get a sense, she's very insignificant before the snake, right? The snake appears and now she's seeking wisdom. She's aware of beauty, right? So you can sense that she has a rich inner life inside, but she's not able to connect to the world outside of her. Write this down. This is important. She certainly has a very rich inner life, but we can sense she's unable to connect either to her husband or to God, right? There's something going on here, right? Okay, let's trudge on. I want to see if there's anything else. Yes. Finally, Sosa, why didn't God forgive them? Oh, we're so used to Santa, right? God has a big Santa in the sky, gonna fix everything. Remember, right? I think, Sosa, you studied the book of Job with me, didn't you, Sosa? Where are you, Sosa? Sosa, are you there? Sosa is absent. One of the things
I think what's it called? He was speaking to me. He got frozen, and
oh, I see. Yes, he just mentioned that internet is bad. Okay, so we'll speak for Sosa, right? We learned especially in the book of Job, which sadly we won't study in this class, but we learned that God is not only there to love us, he's also there to challenge us. And perhaps, and this is what I'm going to show in the next few days, perhaps this punishment is not meant to punish, but to create growth in the human couple, right? Make sure you write this down, because this is one of the main this is the direction I'm going to take, right? This so-called curse, right, that comes out of the mouth of God after, you know, he begins to speak and diagnose the situation. We have seen it as a punishment. What I'm going to propose is that it is not so much a punishment as a challenge and an opportunity for growth, right? And I might say there are elements, powerful elements of redemption in this text. And this is where I want to turn to right now, right? We need to get to the text itself. Yeah, so first of all, what I'm going to be doing in the next few days is what I call the remez, right? This is the attention to the Hebrew, right? The structure, writing it down, the structure of the text, repetitions, right? I'm going to be attentive to these hidden elements. So we know the pshat is, okay, God punishes them, and that's the end of the story. That's the pshat. Okay, true, right? Now they have to suffer for their sins. It's logical, right? The wages of sin is death, right? So there's definitely room for interpretation of the pshat, right? That indeed they made a mistake, God will punish them, and it's logical. They sinned, therefore they must suffer and die. Okay, fine. Let's leave we have the pshat, good. Okay, let's leave it behind now. Let's go to the deeper layers, right? I want to go into the deeper layers of the remez. The first thing I'm going to show you is the grammatical arguments for why I think that there are sections in this curse which are to be seen as redemptive. Okay, so turn with me. Let's go there now. This is going to be the hard part that we will pour over for the next few days. We will be studying mainly chapter 3 from verse when he talks to the snake. Where is it? Where does he start talking to the snake? The serpent, blah, blah, blah. The Lord said to the serpent. Okay, this is verse 14. Okay, so we'll be studying chapter 3, verse 14 up until 20. Okay, this will be our focus for the next few days. So, before I do so, no, let me do that. It's fine. Okay, so there are actually 3 redemptive moments in this text. Yes, there is pain, there is suffering, there is punishment, yes, right? Definitely the woman will suffer in childbirth. The man will suffer in the toil, right? He's going to be working the ground, which will not be giving up the fruit so easily anymore. Interesting connection, right, with the sin. But in the middle of this punishment, in the middle of this darkness, right, we have moments, powerful openings of light. And that's what I want to focus on in our study. The first opening of light is already clearly attested by the rabbis and by Christian interpreters. This is Genesis 3:15. I want to stop on that briefly, right? Genesis 3:15. So after he's talked to the snake, right, he's talking to the woman. No, to the snake, actually. He's saying, turn there with me to Genesis 3:15. Everybody on Genesis 3:15, put your hand in the screen. Okay, so I'm reading from my translation. He says to the snake, I will put enmity between you and the woman, between your offspring and hers. The they is a mistranslation. It is he in the Hebrew. He shall strike at your head and you shall strike at their heel. So this is a vision, right? This is a prophetic vision that the God is speaking to the snake, saying there will come a day, right? The snake who has defeated the woman, right? The snake who represents in the text the origin of evil, the origin of temptation, right? This snake, prophetic word from God, is going to be defeated by the seed of the woman, right? So I think, who was it who mentioned this? This was really good. Where are you? That the woman here is seen in a redemptive light. She is not seen as she's seen as a potential redeemer. God, was it Alim? Yeah, Alim, that was Alim. Yes, absolutely, right? Seeing here that the woman is given a powerful redemptive role. Her seed is going to crush the head of the snake, but the snake is going to bite the heel of this potential redeemer, right? So there's a kind of going to be a kind of cosmic conflict, right, between the seed of the woman and the representation of evil, right? So everybody, Jewish and Christian, agrees that here this is this is a Messianic prophecy, right? This is alluding to the redemption from evil that will come through the woman, right? So again, the woman is not seen as the source of evil, right? She's seen here as the source of redemption. Very different view from the Greeks, which we'll come to, right? This is the first redemptive moment. Any questions on this first redemptive moment? King?
I wanted to say earlier, how to somebody like me, how could you say about redemption when it's so clearly a punishment, because there's just so much pain inflicted when the baseline was none.
Yeah, so you have, what I'm saying is that in the middle of the pain, there is an opening of light. In the middle of the darkness, right, there is an opening. So yes, it's a very dark time, right? Even though God was strolling, we are still in this very dark time. But what I'm saying is that in the middle of this dark time, there is an opening. This is the first opening. Does that make sense, King?
Okay, I'll see how it plays out.
Okay, very good. Now, the second one is the one that hasn't yet been discovered, that we are discovering now. This is Genesis 3:16. And I'm gonna, this is if you understand this argument, you will understand everything else I will say. Genesis 3:16 is the famous passage that has been used to oppress women for centuries. This is the passage where it says, are you all with me on Genesis 3:16? Hold on, I'm trying to put your hand in the screen if you're there. Okay, this is the famous passage where it says to the woman, your desire will be for your husband and he shall rule over you. We'll come back to this, right? Now, what I'm going to show right now is that this passage, the way it's written, echoes Genesis 3:15, and therefore might also be a messianic opening. Are you following what I just said? This is crucial. Because this passage is written in the same way as Genesis 3:15, I'm going to show you. Because the way it's written, the structure, therefore, I'm going to insinuate that perhaps we could argue, and we will, that this passage might also be a moment of redemption and not a moment of oppression, right? Let me show you the elements that indicate this. Look at the structure, look at 3, I'm going to write it in the chat, okay? 3:15, look how it's written. Okay, I'm going to type it up. He shall strike your head and you shall strike at the heel, okay? Notice the he. I'm going to talk about this in a second. I'm putting it in big letters for a reason. 3:16. We have your desire for your husband, and again, big he, shall rule over you. Now, is anybody seeing the connection, structural connection between these two passages? I need you to see this. Are you seeing the way it's written? Are you seeing how they resemble each other? Are you seeing that? Put your hand on the screen if you're seeing how they resemble each other. Okay, so you have the same. Why do they resemble each other? First of all, there's reciprocity. He'll strike your head, you'll strike the heel. He'll do this, you'll do that. Reciprocity. Second passage, 3:16, same thing, reciprocity. Your desire for a husband, he shall rule over you. Reciprocity. So both have this reciprocity thing. This is not a strong enough argument. The real strong argument is what the author is doing with the he. Let me explain. For this, you need, okay, are you guys ready for a Hebrew lesson? You need to know some deep Hebrew for this. Everybody ready for a Hebrew lesson? Are you ready? Put your hand in the screen. Okay. In the Hebrew language, you know how in English we say, we always have the pronoun I do, I walk, I go, I sing, right? If you know Spanish, you'll understand this. In the Hebrew, we don't put the pronouns. We just say walks, walked, walking. And the ending signifies who is doing it. We have this in Spanish. How many of you know Spanish? Put your hand in the screen. 1%, great. In Spanish, we have, okay, how do I put it? Let me remember my Spanish. Comiste, he ate, right? How is it in the I ate, come, right? I don't put yo come, I just come, or tú comiste, just comiste. Are you following me in the syntax of the Spanish? Put your hand in the screen if you follow. No pronoun needed in the Spanish. In the Hebrew also, we don't usually put the pronoun I, you, he, she. We just have the verb and the ending tells you who is doing it. Now, in our text, we have the pronoun both times. If you go to the Hebrew, you would see this, right? And this is unusual, 3:15. Instead of just saying, strike your head, right? And we know it's he, emphasis, will strike your head and you shall strike at the heel. And 3:16, again, the pronoun is used, your desire for husband, and he shall rule over you. The author is creating an echo between the two passages by emphasizing these two pronouns. This is very technical. Are you following me, guys? Put your hand in the screen if you see what I'm saying. Okay, good. Okay, so this is just some, we're in the remez, right? We're in this deep layer of grammar and structure in Hebrew. In the way the author has written these two passages, I would argue that he is wanting us to hear them together. One is the echo of the other. Therefore, if one is redemptive, to use Stajić's argument, A equals B, B equals C, A equals C. If one is redemptive, then possibly Genesis 3:16, instead of being a curse, might be a profound moment of redemption. Are you all with me? Put your hand in the screen. Okay. Now, let's see if there's any questions on that particular topic. Stajić, go ahead.
Okay, on that particular topic, you were talking about he. Okay, now, given the fact that this is a prophecy, can I go into, or can I go into the Gospels?
No.
Okay, never mind.
You can't. You can only say that you can only interpret that maybe it's pointing to a redeemer, but you cannot go further.
Okay. Right. So it's like you said, it's pointing to somebody who will come to save mankind from what Adam and Eve have done.
Yes.
That redeemer, I will not speak about the redeemer, but that particular redeemer, like it says in the text, I might be going a little off topic because I wanted to say something. That particular redeemer is going to die, however, he will rule afterwards. I'm going into John. I'm sorry. I promised you that I will not do this.
You want to stop? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll help you finish in a short way, right? Christians have interpreted this text to point to Jesus, obviously, right? This redeemer that is killed in the process of saving, absolutely. And you have, interestingly, Judaism doesn't talk obviously about Jesus, but ascribes this prophecy to the coming Messiah, right? So in a way, Christianity and Judaism agree. But what's interesting to me is not Genesis 3:15. Because I'm doing gender, right? I'm looking at Genesis 3:16 as echoing Genesis 3:15, and therefore, possibly, this is what you write, Genesis 3:16, instead of being a curse, might very well be a moment of redemption. But of course, we have to then read the passage in a completely different light than it has been read so far. And what I'm going to do right now in the remaining minutes is show you how this passage has been read, and why, in my view, doesn't fit with the intention of the author, right? So give me about 5 minutes. I have about 6 minutes to do this. So I'll get your questions afterwards if I have a little time. And of course, we have the whole hour after class if you want to stay with questions. Okay, this is the way that this text, Genesis 3:16, has been interpreted throughout history in both Jewish and Christian interpretations. And I will even read you some quotes. Right? And then I will tell you where this interpretation comes from, and then we will start to move towards a new interpretation, right? Typically, if you read, let's start with Jewish interpretation, right? They're unanimous. It's very interesting. It's a unanimous interpretation, which I'll read you a quote by Philo, who was a Jewish philosopher of the time of Jesus, right? This is Philo. He says this about the whole situation. This is his interpretation. Listen carefully. He says this about the woman. But the woman was more accustomed to be deceived than the man. Okay, so she's kind of she's easier to deceive. That's why the serpent talks to her. right? For his counsels as well as his body are of a masculine sort, competent to disentangle the notions of seduction. But the mind of the woman is effeminate, so that through her softness, she easily yields and is easily caught by the persuasions of falsehood, right? So in other words, he's saying the woman, because of her physical makeup, is more easily deceived, and this is why the serpent talked to her, and this is why she falls. And the man, of course, he's the strong one. Now, we already know that the text is already not going in that direction, about the man being the strong one, right? Correct? You all remember what we said about the man a few minutes ago. Okay, but here Philo is saying the woman, she's the weak one. That's why she's the target. The man is the strong one. That's why he's not targeted by the snake, right? He continues. He says this. Man's sin, he says, ultimately concludes, was that he gave up his rightful position as a master to subordinate himself to the woman. So that's the problem. And here in the text, it says that he's given back his mastery over the woman. So his interpretation is that the woman was weak and needed to be, make sure you write this down. This is classic interpretation. Everyone says this, right? Starts with Philo, we'll see earlier. The woman is weak morally. She needs the man to control her because she can't think clearly. And here in the text, the man doesn't control her. And that's why in Genesis 3:16, God gives the man back his control over the woman so that she will not sin again. Everybody clear on this interpretation? This is Philo, and this is everybody after him. Okay. Ambrose in the Christian tradition. I'm just quoting one. They're all saying the same thing, right? If you want more in the Jewish tradition, same idea in the Midrash, Rashi, Nachmanides, all of them saying the same thing, right? Christianity, you have, in addition to Ambrose, you have Tertullian, Aquinas also agreeing on this. This is what Ambrose says. Same thing. Sounds just like the Jewish interpretation. He says this. She was talking about the woman. She was the first to be deceived and was responsible for deceiving the man. Now she's the one responsible. Okay. Wherefore the Apostle Paul has related that holy women have in olden times been subject to the stronger vessel and recommends them to obey their husbands as their masters, right? This is a warning that no one ought to rely on himself, for she who was made for assistance needs the protection of a man. So again, the same idea, right? That she was the deceiver and the man is the stronger vessel, and therefore he has to control her. And so the interpretation again of this passage is that in Genesis 3:16, man is given back the control over the woman because she is so morally weak. Everybody clear? Hand in the screen? Okay. Now, I wrote a paper on this, which you will all have to read for the test. And in this paper, I show why the Jews and the Christians agree so wonderfully on the interpretation of this passage. Anybody wonder? It's unusual, right? That the Jews and the Christians would agree like this. The main reason, which I show, right? Unless someone wants to try to answer. Anybody know why they agree so wonderfully? Grandic, I see a smirk on your face. Go ahead.
Is it because I know we kind of mentioned this earlier on, but is it because Aristotle held that position?
Exactly, right? Most commentators, both Jewish and Christian, are writing in the context of Greek culture, right? They're heavily influenced by Aristotle. And we already saw, I introduced Aristotle to you, where Aristotle says lower body temperature, weaker morally, man, higher body temperature, stronger morally, therefore man needs to control the woman. This is Aristotle speaking through the commentators. It is not the text, right? This will be my argument. I'm going to argue that these commentators have missed the mark. Why? Because they are reading with Greek eyes a Hebrew text. Are you following? Write this down. This is my very strong view that commentators, traditional commentators, Christian and Jewish, have completely missed the meaning of this text. Why? Because they are reading the text through the eyes of Aristotle, and they are not seeing the Hebrew intention. They're not seeing what is actually written there. And so one of the things we'll be doing in the next few days is look at this text from the Hebrew perspective, Hebrew intertextual, looking at what woman's desire means. What does rule mean? in the context of other passages, in the Hebrew world, not the Greek world. And one of my conclusions, which I want to get to, make sure you write this down, is that this text, far from being a text of oppression, is a text of redemption. Let me say it again. What I'm going to show in the next few days is that the text, far from being a text of oppression, right, the man needs to control the woman because she's morally weak, is actually a text of redemption. We'll see how, right? Okay, whew, I said what I had to say for today. Okay, it's so hard, this passage. Okay, let's see, what time is it? Okay, 4:26. All right, let's conclude here, but I will stay behind, right? Whoever is still unclear or unhappy, either in your heart you are unclear or in your mind you are unclear, please stay behind. Just quick, a favor I'm asking you as I am addressing each individual question, do not barge in, wait for your turn with your question. I'm not going to make this a discussion format simply because it is exhausting for me. And you already have opportunity to discuss in your group. So I will simply be answering questions one-on-one, right? You come with your question, I answer you. When you're done, I go to the next person, right? So, okay, so y'all are dismissed. Oh yeah, next time, please, we will still be doing Genesis 3. Go back to Genesis 3. The assignment, the reading assignment will be on Genesis 3. I want you to read the curse again. The serpent, the man, the woman. And now that you have more elements, I want you to begin to question, why this punishment? How is Genesis 3:16 redemptive? Maybe, right? I want you to start thinking, right? Make sure you think about this. Let me write it down in the chat. Why might Genesis 3:16 be redemptive? Right? What was the true sin of the woman? Right? What was the true sin of the man? Right? We talk about a fruit, but it's not really the fruit. It's something deeper than the fruit, right? What's the deeper thing going on? I want you to go deeply into what is going on. So next time, right? Genesis 3. We're still doing Genesis 3. Okay, y'all can go. Whoever wants to stay for questions, you can stay. Have a whole hour. And we can continue one-on-one, right? Make sure not to barge into any discussion I'm having with someone. Okay, I'm stopping.
I'm just